How's it going now? The parking at the beginning of your sale had 3 bands. Perfect. I spent a lot of time like an hour just driving, would be great. Needed that light, 100 mile an hour. All around. Just get the feel for it. Some of these sunny cool days, yeah, take long. Stay away. What do you want? Sweet. Yeah.
I did too. I felt like I was back. Probably wasn't good.
It averages out, we're only 1 hour. Even like 10,000 miles a year. It's 40. It has 40,000 miles. Yeah. 2008. It's like 20 years old, 21 years old.
I still got one more.
No, they didn't broke it. Yeah.
Yeah, did you get
I backed out of the conversation because the time frame on it didn't fit my schedule, so I'm doing, we put stone ledge. I'm actually doing all stone work, fireplaces, doing all pretty.
I mean, I was creative, so I.
Yeah. So we had to get in there so they can backfill, make more room on the site. Stone ledge. I got. Always they want me to build that. Once they get the hangers, they still have to put the hanger. Yeah, they just put foundation for the house. The hangers still have no idea.
Mass, was it?
Yeah. And then when this is done, they're building another one in the lot next door. That's Airbnb. Yep. So pilots or families, people got planes, they just want to fly in for weekends. At the house.
Why not?
Whole different.
It's a whole different level.
Several pay grades, one on the rest.
Well, yeah.
Just amazing.
There we are.
Stuff going on around.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Some of them really is.
No. Yeah.
These are good.
You get my email?
I did, thank you.
I didn't get one.
It was short and
I
sweet.
said you want in the morning, so you don't feel left
It
out.
was short and sweet.
All right, looks like we're at 7 o'clock. We all rise for the pledge. Meeting going. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Al Baker. Here. Nancy Rondell.
Here.
Matt Bogira.
Here.
John Cox here and John Leo.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Oh, good. Citizens comment, if you're here for any item that's not on our agenda tonight, it's your opportunity to speak. Oh, there we go.
Linda Rockwards, 519 East Third Street, and I'm just here to give you a little short update. The Save Our Services Committee is hard at work. We're out there hopefully pounding the sidewalks, trying to get yes votes. My personal contacts have all been positive. I've just, well, I had one guy that shook his head no, but he didn't know me, so. I think the rest of them always don't want to listen to my spiel, you know, but no, I'm very confident, and hopeful unless something goes awry, we will be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Perfect. Anyone on the computer tonight?
If we do, Sarah McLean.
Hi there, this is Sarah McLean. I live at 50 Washington Court, and I just wanted to give a kudos or shout out to the Parks and Rec Department for Arbor Day. And I know that the tree board was involved with that as well. I brought two of my 3 children up and they had a really, really nice time. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue to provide funding for events like this.
All right, great. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay. I guess we've got our consent agenda. Any issues? Comments?
Make the motion to approve.
Second. Any comments from the gallery? Perfect.
Who did I have as a second?
It was John, the other John.
Matt Bogira.
Yes.
Matt Bogira.
Yes.
John Cox. Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
Al Baker.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. There you're up with the.
Great, thanks. A few meetings ago, well, a few months ago, we talked about that we would be coming to council to talk about a proposed location for a substation. Our engineer, electric department engineer, Michael Engineer, he's with Michael McGinn with GRP Engineering, has been working on this for a while. Actually, in our 2006 study, it's kind of ironically the same location that we're recommending today, picked out as a location. We originally looked at 3 locations. One was here by the Deer Park, one was on Hoyt Street, and Pete's Run, and then one is what you see in your packet, which is northeast side of Lake Street, sometimes called Park Street. Little triangle wedge of property that the city has. Basically, want to settle on a location today, not finalizing the plan for it, but just a general location, as well as looking at what we're going to do for timeline and what we're going to do for funding for this project. Timeline, I imagine that we would have to get some preliminary approval from council here, but have to go to tree advisory board for some input because we're recommending a lot of trees to come down in this area. We'd have to go to planning commission for a site plan hearing, and then a final council approval, and then we would bid it out sometime in early mid-fall, and we're hopeful that would be a 2024 construction. I'll have Michael first talk to the elements of the plan, and then Nick afterwards, if you don't have any questions or when you're done, listen to Michael, Nick can talk a little bit about the financing aspect of this. So Michael, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Victor. And bring up our 3 drawings. So we've worked on a conceptual plan here for the site as Victor has spoken on, and looked at this conceptually, but actually in great detail, and in some cases down to, less than a foot as far as spacing of equipment. What we wanted to make sure that we did as we looked at this site was to make absolutely sure this will work. We don't want to just get up here and say, yep, new substation, that should work in that area. So we're really trying to do our homework well. When we look at electric distribution substation on this triangle, a lot of pros and cons as we're going to have with any site. The pros, and as we looked at the 3 sites that Victor spoke on, what we were looking for is proximity to the 46 kV transmission line that used to serve the site here, and proximity to the distribution circuits that will serve out of the substation. And the closer that we can be to those components, the less expensive the project is going to be. So as we looked at conceptual plan here for this substation, what we see coming in, I'll start with the red lines you see on the drawing here, and then we'll go into the details. But what we would have is the transmission line would come in underground, and all the distribution circuits would be routed out underground. So the transmission would come down Lake Street where that old line today dead ends there by the ball field. It would come in underground and serve the substation. And then, as I mentioned, there'd be 4 distribution circuits that would be routed out of that substation. 2 would go up to Lake Road and connect to the existing overhead line, which would be rebuilt over to Hoyt. And the other 2 would come out underground towards Lake and down to 119, and again, just connect to the existing overhead line. The beauty, if we can say the beauty of doing that, obviously, is less tree removal for those lines, and just from the aesthetic standpoint of not having to see overhead transmission and overhead distribution lines. So from that standpoint, this site definitely works well. Now we've got some flexibility that we can have as far as where the substation could be, closer to lake or with some kind of small park, as Victor said, a little east, a little west. What we really want to do with this site is make sure that we can screen it to the best of its ability, but make it functional at the same time. And we know we're going to have to do tree removal, but how much do we have to do with the tree removal? The trees that are on that site are 75 to 85 feet in height. And what we want to make sure is if a tree would come down in a storm, that it's not going to damage the substation. So that's really our biggest concern with this site from a physical standpoint. From a screening standpoint, with tree removal that would happen on at least 3, if not all 4 sides of it, we certainly would screen this substation utilizing evergreens, staggered, probably 11 to 12 foot in height, and staggered so as they grow it is fully concealed. And there's obviously other ways to do it, as I've spoke in the past when we did a substation in downtown Traverse City that's in a building, and you don't realize it's there. So you can go all the way from just some evergreens all the way to the point of putting it in a building so the general public can't tell. Lots of options. Victor, if you would go to the next drawing, if you would, please, so we look at what the substation would look like. We start to get in the technical side a little bit, but with north up on the page here, what we would have is a transmission line would come in from the north underground. That's why you're not seeing it. It would serve the substation transformer. Again, realizing substation transformers are running at least a year, and in some cases at least throughout the 3 years out right now on delivery time. That's your major piece of equipment, and what we would want furthest away from a tree being able to fall on it. So we tucked that really as far up into the northeast corner that we could. After you go through your substation transformer, there are 4 distribution circuits that would feed out underground. You're seeing a plan view here of bus work, breakers, the electrical components of that substation. And if we go to the next drawing, we have a nice elevation view of that. So this elevation view here, working from left to right across the page, again, conceptually, but really this is functionally what we would see in a substation of this style. Starting on the left, fence would be 8 foot in height with barbed wire on top of it. Really, we can go down to 7, but 8 foot is becoming more traditional. And in this location, where we know we do have a lot of public movement in the area, just for a little additional safety to have that chain link fence at 8 foot in elevation. But working our way across, what we see on the left here would be that 46 kV underground transmission coming in through a switch and a fuse structure. That structure would be about 22 feet in height. Now, the taller structures that you see up in the air that are shown at about 37 feet, those are lightning rods. Certainly, we do not want lightning striking any of the electrical equipment in the station, so very common to put lightning rods in. This design that we did here was to keep those as short as possible. You can go one really tall pole or a couple tall poles, but again, the idea aesthetically here would be to keep that as low as possible. And as we work through that elevation view, the substation transformer, and then again, as you go to the right would be electrical bus work, the breakers that protect the distribution circuits that you see on the far right side going out underground. This substation, again, conceptually here with room to move through with the cranes, low noise, all the equipment that's necessary to build the station and to maintain it. Looking at, about 108 by 123, we can round that up 110 to 125 feet of fenced in area. And then obviously expanded outside of that for construction, lay down area and just to physically be able to construct it. So that's beauty is in the eye, but that's a beautiful substation. Looking at it without any screening at this point, but conceptually, will that site work for the needs of what you need here for a substation to continue to serve load? Yes, that site will work as we've shown. So we're showing as thank you for going back now to the overall here. Showing that fence starting off lake about 110 feet plus or minus and about 30 feet off the parking lot. That gives us about a 20-foot setback from the actual property line. The property line between city parcel and the schools, there's about 10 foot off the asphalt plus or minus. So that gives us about 20 feet of room there to do some screening after construction is done. The other dimension that we put in is just dimension off of the wheelway there, off the bike path, about 40 to 45 feet to that corner. And obviously, we would have to do some tree clearing around the substation on the south and the west side with the heights of the trees out there of being 75 feet and even some a little taller. So that's the conceptual plan, and with that laid out, yes, this site functionally will work.
Thank you, Michael. Council.
Or I thought it should be, so I got no problem with it.
Have we had any feedback from either the residents that are adjacent or from the school?
Have not contacted them yet. I was gonna wait to get a preliminary approval before we go on to the planning commission stage.
Do you do a directional bore or dig a hole to put the transmission in and out lines?
The transmission and the distribution would be done via directional bore. Yes.
It's good to me. Yeah, good. It's good location, out of the way.
Sounds nice. Saving that triangle for something.
Right?
That looks good.
Need a vote?
No, we don't need a vote. This is fine, but I guess Nick will get into now the financing options here and what we could do, probably should do.
Yeah, well. When you come to a project of this scope, there's really one alternative, and that's bonds. I mean, that's all there is to it. I've emailed out to our bond people that we've dealt with in the past, and once we start this process going by this approval, where, and then start getting some numbers compiled, it'll start going. It takes time, but it sounds like it's gonna take several years to get this transformers.
Michael, you said 1 to 3 years potentially.
It 1 to 3 years depending on the vendor, and it's just timelines are kind of crazy right now, but at least a year after award. So bidding process, et cetera, we're looking at minimum 14 months before a transformer is going to be sitting there. So when you start to take that timeline for construction and energization, you're a solid year and a half. That's why a 24 energization is realistic.
And we have to do a rebuild of the 46 kV line in conjunction with this project. So that's about $4.5 million estimate right now. It could change, but that's what we're estimating. We probably need to bond for probably a little more for contingencies.
That's the feeder that goes to West Traverse.
Yes.
Yes. So I guess my suggestion was Nick is going to explore some bonding, talk to our,
Right, I mean, we can get that process rolling, but it would fall in there somewhere between, September, October. And obviously, I'm not gonna know exactly what kind of dollars we're talking to. We actually bid the project, but in the meantime, the financing side will be rolling behind the scenes.
So what you need today is approval to move forward with the detail behind this location.
a consensus approval is fine with us. There's no objection.
I think it's a great
I think we're all there.
Yeah, okay, I think.
Yeah.
Moving
Moving forward.
is good.
Great, so I'll go to tree board in July, just once we get some more idea, just some input from them on, types of screening and stuff like that. But we actually have some more detailed plans before we get too serious with going to planning
I
commission.
mean, the trees need to come out to
Yes.
clear the space, so their input will be to how to both
Screen.
maybe screen it and put the canopy back.
Without jeopardizing the structure.
Right.
All right, unless there's any questions from the public, Mayor.
Questions from the public? There we go.
Just got a question. So there's I'm sorry, Deanna Mulder at 372 West Summit. There's an enterprise fund that money is in that comes from, electric bills and so forth. Does that get used first, or does some of that get used, or does it all?
That's all that will get used.
Pardon?
That's all that will get used. So any down payment, money out of pocket for this project would come from the electric fund, which is an enterprise fund. Any bond payments that are made going forward will be paid for by the electric fund, so there will be no effect on other city activities. And that's part of the rate approval process we went through last year, implementing these rates January 1st, a little tiny increase here and there to start covering these bond payments as they come.
Becky Backus, 500 West Summit. Is this thing gonna make any noise?
That's the loudest piece of equipment during normal operation is the substation transformer. Transformer is about 70 decibels from about 20 feet away. That's about the which is very, very rare. And that's really very quiet.
And I am very challenged when it comes to maps. Can you tell me where this is? I don't know.
Across from the soccer field parking lot,
I'm sorry, what?
the Reynolds Field parking lot.
Yeah.
It's in the square between the care center and the parking lot.
By the track.
So down south here, at the bottom of your map right here, Becky, is where the Bay Bluffs facility is.
Oh,
Right here.
I got it. That's the garage.
And that's the garage.
Got it. So is there a chance that a ball could get tossed into there?
There is a chance, yep.
If a kid walked into that parking lot and threw it at it, yes.
But from the fields themselves, probably not.
Heck of a catch if it was.
So is there a way to, it might be fun to just toss a ball in there. Whereas
think
now
Kyle
where
would
the
get involved.
substation is kind of out of sight, out of mind.
The idea is that the fence being 8 feet tall is hopefully is gonna prevent a little bit more of that than a 7-foot fence, and having a parking lot between the substation and the field would also prevent that, but you're right, the closer you are to more people and more parks, there's more likely something's going to happen. Aside from putting inside a building or a much larger fence, it's really, really hard to prevent that.
So we should have spare parts on hand, just in case.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Okay, any other public comment?
Any comment online?
So you have what you need.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Thank you. See you next time.
All right, here's a very brief update on the boardwalk. I had a couple questions from council members about specific aspects of the boardwalk project. One of them was if whether or not we could build a viewing platform first ahead of time and kind of show, example of what the boardwalk could look like. I talked to our engineers about that and they said theoretically it should be no problem to separate it out. There probably shouldn't be any concern about a completed viewing platform interfering with the construction of the project. And it might, of course, give residents a sample of what it's going to look like and open the viewing platform first before the boardwalk, because obviously the viewing platform is used in and of itself. Some people just go to viewing platform just to view and don't go on the boardwalk. So it's possible. So if the first question to discuss is if that's what council wants to entertain that idea. I don't know how feasible it will be to, get out bids and, cost estimates and how long that's going to take, but it's possible. So I just don't know what that timeline is going to look like. The second one was, got a question about, can we bid out the project earlier? And that again is possible. It might give us a better idea of what the costs are going to be if we can bid it out earlier. However, there's some hesitancy about bidding out a project before we have the funding for it, because contractors generally have to secure the dates they're going to work on a project. And if this, the month they have to work on the boardwalk is, maybe it's going to happen, maybe not, based on our funding, they might be less hesitant to commit, or they might be more likely to raise their bid price for that. So it is possible, but it's just not 100%. Are we going to, get as many people to bid, knowing that we might not commit to billing on a certain date. So it's all dependent on funding. However, I am speaking with a contractor to at least get an estimate in a few weeks here on what they think they would bid for this project, but a non-binding estimate, of course. Of course, our estimates are based on a price increase that lumber's gone up and down, and contractors have, obviously, it's been more expensive for them to do their projects. So our cost estimates were about 20 to 25% more than we had predicted in 2017, 2018. And we don't know if that's 100% accurate or not. It's just hard to know. So getting another estimate from a contractor might be helpful. And then a third one was a clarifying question. Are we fundraising for the eastern half? And to clarify, no, that's not our intent right now. One of the ideas that brought up was that if for some reason we got to that $600,000 point relatively easily, and people were still just donating money to us, then council could decide, all right, might want to set this money aside for the eastern half. However, I think we would come back to council regularly with updates on where we're at with money, so council can definitely commit to whether or not they want to continue raising money for the eastern half, because again, we don't know what that's going to cost like. So. And then just updates about the fundraising. We have begun fundraising. We have a page on the website. We will be sending out mailers. And we're going to put up an FAQ on the website. So, and there's one minor change to the boardwalk design. A few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, Benchmark sent the design to Emmett County Building Department. They had one correction, which was to change the rise between the steps from 7.25 inches to 7 inches, which will add about probably a total of 5 steps to the project, other than that, they said that the boardwalk, the project meets the building code, so. So I entertain you guys having question, if you got a discussion on.
One hurdle taken care of.
I've had a couple people suggest that we put some signage up, directing them to the fundraising, top and bottom of the boardwalk, because people are gonna, that were here last year, are gonna try and use it. And when they hit a dead end, at least they'll know what's going on.
Help us reopen. That's a great idea.
So, little project for Rachel.
Yeah, that's great.
Well,
I guess, just clarification, the first point of, do you want to go ahead with trying to see if we can get the viewing platform done first? It's possible.
would.
I think we should. It came up during one of our meetings. It's a great idea. It'll show progress on the project. It'll give us a lookout. I don't see a downside. My one hesitation was, if you build it, will it interfere with any future work? Sounds like it won't.
Should.
So I think we should pursue it. Why wouldn't
you
we?
could probably build it where it's removable, just pick it up. Maybe,
I think it's worth pursuing.
yeah.
I think it's a good idea. It'll show some progress.
I did get an
more
email
quickly.
from someone who wanted an elevator there this weekend. Did not respond.
I've heard other people suggest a funicular up and down the hill, so there's lots of ideas.
How about that?
Or a zip line, that was the other one.
Yeah. And then the second one was, can we bid out the project earlier? If you want me to try pursuing that, I mean, we can. I just don't know, again.
I think we need to look at it, but like you and I talked about, if we wait till the end of June, first part of July, we'll have a little better idea where things are at,
Fundraising.
what's going on. But I think we should get in my opinion, just being in the trades, we should get a good idea going forward and then look and see who's even available to look at a 23 project right now. If the economy holds, there might not be anybody available for 23 right now that's capable of doing what needs to be done. There's nobody locally. So they're all gonna come from southern end or out of state to do this, so.
But it would be helpful to have a better idea rather than guessing at how much materials have gone out. There's so many different materials and processes, we don't know. Would be good to have a better idea.
And I just think in benchmark, we'll set this up, just some stipulations in there, knowing that it's a 23 project. You know, they're gonna inflate whatever numbers they need to inflate. It's still gonna give us a realistic idea of where we're at with things. Because most bids right now going out by me or anybody else are only lasting 15 to 30 days, because you don't know what material costs are gonna be, you know, from one month to the next, so. It's a tough deal, but we gotta have some direction for the fundraising efforts, so.
Yeah, looks like I got my direction.
Oh, I've got a couple. Mr. Backus.
Barry Backus, 500 West Summit. I used to live in Dubuque, Iowa, and they have a trolley, a hill like this one. And they have a trolley that goes up a hill. It's built by the banker who didn't want to walk downtown. And it's an enclosed trolley. And it used to cost a quarter, it's $2 now, and people come from all over to go in the trolley. I mean, it's the highlight of it was not much to do. That's a big thing. It's just something to consider, I think. Kind of late in the game.
All right. Thank you.
Just to clarify, are we gonna bid out the west and the east ends?
Let's go
No, we're
last.
just doing the west.
We're talking about Plan A, right, which is to rebuild the east,
We're the west.
the west, and to leave the east alone.
Yep.
But I think in the bid package, we should have an alternate for the east side. In my opinion, that way, for whatever reason, if the fundraising efforts go above and beyond, we kind of know what the easterly half is gonna run us.
We can
It's
have,
really important to know at both ends that are.
we can have an
I
east.
mean, I understand point A to point B is our focus right now. But if we do end up putting it out to bid, then we should have an alternate for the easterly side, whether it gets done at the same time or not, but at least we'll know what that is gonna cost us.
I'll talk to benchmark.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty easy to get the plans for the Eastern.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be that big a deal. They've already got the stuff.
It's just a matter of how we bid it out.
Correct. I think it should be an alternate in the bid package, not primary. We know what point A to point B is gonna be. But as an alternate to do all of it together or to do it separately, what's that gonna be? And that's, all that is an alternate in the bid package. That's nothing for a bidder. So it's just a little extra wording on benchmarks and
I do agree with that because since we are changing that rise of those stairs, we already had more steps than what are currently there for the east side. And so the west side is going to be very important for other people that don't want to do that as many stairs as possible. Because if you go and count them, we're like looking at 30 more steps on the east side than it was what is currently there.
that's building
West
codes.
side,
That's,
Right.
yeah, that's-
Right, and so the west side, because we have, you have that walking space, it's a little bit easier to climb. So it would be nice to have both sides bid.
Well, again, you're in the trades. If it's easy to add.
Yeah, it's just an
A section,
alternate. It's a little
alternate
extra
plan.
wording on benchmarks and we're gonna have to spend a little bit of money for plans for them to finalize that side because we don't have that right now.
Makes sense. Let's find out.
But
Is that,
on the short end of it, it would make sense. Like I said, all it is an alternate. So, yeah, plan A and plan B.
I think from a financial standpoint, it makes sense simply for the fact that we've been talking about the $600,000 western portion. We really have no idea if it's 400 or $1 million. So at least going forward, we'll know, here's what A to B is. Here is a lot more accurate number for the eastern half. At least when we do this process for the next side, we'll at least have a number to start with.
Because right now we've got a good fundraising group going between the city group and Maggie's group, so to speak. So the sooner we can get some more accurate numbers, I think the sooner both groups can sell what we need to do here. So.
I do think it's really important that, I agree with you guys, but that we're clear what we're fundraising for now. So that people know when they give money, that we're not guaranteeing the western and eastern half are going to be finished. I mean, I just think it's really important when people give money.
Well, it's the western half. That's
That the
primary.
western half is what we're gonna do. And if we raise all the money we need for that western half, we've got a plan in place for the eastern half. But that we're not guaranteeing those are both gonna be completed on this initial phase. Just so people don't give money thinking one thing and.
No, because the idea is to get that open back up for
Right, exactly.
spring or
Yeah.
early summer of next year. So that's the goal. So.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Allison Larson, 255 East Bluff, and I'm a member of the Parks Board. Last week on Tuesday, the Parks Board met to discuss working together and fundraising with the Boardwalk Preservation Group, and we had a very productive and positive meeting. The following day, we are going to meet together jointly to start promoting working on promotional materials and such. And then Rachel Roon told us that Victor said the city isn't going to work with the preservation board and that we weren't allowed to do this. Victor, you work for the taxpayers. Your best interest is of the city and the taxpayers. By not having these two groups work together, it's not in the best interest of either the city or the taxpayers and bringing our community together. And why did you decide this?
well, there's a couple of reasons. First, council never authorized me to work with the group. Second, do you have your 501c3 status yet?
It's pending, and so we're
So
legally,
that's, you don't have your status yet, so I cannot recommend that we work jointly on telling people to give money to your group, not knowing when or if you're gonna get that status.
I just want to finish my statement on that. So on all of our promotional material, it says 501c3 pending. We are legally able to do that by our legal team that has put this together. We're at the last stage, 2 more months. We have to have 180 days to wait for it. I have talked to the Harbor Springs Petoskey group, and I talked to GJ. He left the message today. He's like 90% Maggie, you're going to be getting that 501c3. Let's wait and see what happens, but this should not be a problem for you. So I'm very confident here of where we are. This is a community project. We need to work together. We had some really great ideas that if you watch the meeting, everybody was almost high-fiving each other because we had some great ideas to move forward. One of them was to do a group float for the 4th of July. And it would just bring, everybody understanding that there's 2 ways to promote this. We do have the online service. We're getting in like $200 a day. The town's not even moving yet because people aren't here currently. But I do think that if we can have synergy and move this together, we can get this done in a short amount of time. But if we are coming across where we're rubbing each other, it's going to hurt both sides. And I just don't understand why we're not working together on this.
I think there's a really big difference. And I did watch your meeting. I couldn't be there, but I watched it. I don't think, I'm speaking for myself because I can't speak for the whole council. It's not a matter of not working together, but combining the money is when you don't have your status yet. I know you said you're going to get it, but that presents a problem for the city to not have it yet. I mean, legally, the city has to be very careful. So not saying, I don't think that we're saying we're not going to work with you, but when if we combine certain things, it becomes a real problem.
We're not combining funds. This is all, I can do an Excel spreadsheet and it pulls out all the information by who it is and so forth. They know and get a thank you letter immediately that states what our status is. So it's very clear in the beginning and also in the back end of that we are waiting for a 501c3 status. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are just wanting to give that $20, whatever they can give, that they're giving back to the community. There's also the point where we have these funds and we can come to the city, you can see who they are, and there's a way to do this. That's why I'm working with DJ. So I don't think we're combining funds, we're just combining efforts.
And I don't think we're saying we're not going to work with you.
No,
I don't think
clarify,
that's,
my understanding for talking with Rachel is that we could still work together.
Yeah,
You come to the board meetings, once a month or twice a month. I think the only thing where there was concern was putting the city logo on your material and putting your website on our material. But I think it's so important to have like a coordination of information that we're giving out so everything is together. I think it's just gonna be great to work together. It was a really good meeting, as you said, and I think we can continue on. And then I don't know, Victor, if you feel differently once they get the 501c3. We were thinking it'd just be so nice to have one piece of literature that says there's 2 ways to donate. 1, write a check or take a check to the city, or 2, go online at their website.
Because right now, stores in town have both pieces of information, so it's confusing. So what we had talked about at the meeting was combining it, just redoing the flyers. So it's one, you can go to the city or you can go to the website. So it's cohesive, that's 2 different groups, but one main cause. Instead of reading the flyer for the city here and the flyer for the foundation there and going, what is this, and being confused.
I think anybody who's writing a check would know the difference between the 2 if they're concerned about 501c3. And if they would have a conversation, I'd be happy to direct them to you if they're having any concerns.
Well, I think the city has to be comfortable with it. I mean, I think truly, if Victor's uncomfortable, Nick's uncomfortable with the funding and stuff, I mean, I think that has a lot to do.
I don't know that I'm necessarily uncomfortable with the funding. I think and Jim maybe could even.
Yeah.
I think from our standpoint, it is that 501c3 status. I do know that you're correct, that it will come into play. I have no doubt of that.
It's for a city
But
project.
right now, it's a very.
Well, and I can give you I can send you you can talk to my lawyer on this one that actually did all the paperwork. So we are legally able to promote this and collect funds.
Would there be a way,
Well, let me
Jim
just.
Raymer to put a caveat on there?
Dan, hold on one sec. I mean, the mayor, we're having a conversation between 3-4 different people here, I think. We should have one at a time. One time I speak. And I want to say to council is that I'm not against the Boardwalk Preservation Society fundraising money. However, they are not within my control or or responsibility. So I cannot be responsible for what they say. So if it seems like we are directing them and they're saying things that could potentially not be appropriate, I don't want to have the city held liable for that, or the perception that the city is sending a message that the city is not in control of. That is just not, I just don't think that's appropriate. However, that doesn't mean we're not working together. That doesn't mean that we're working against you. It just means that the city has obligations and doesn't want to put itself at risk of A, telling people to donate to a nonprofit that doesn't have a status yet, and B, I don't control your message. So when someone donates to you and you put something on your website that may not be true or may not reflect something that's accurate, am I going to be, who's accountable for that? Well, they're going to look at me, the residents are going to look at me like, you guys are working with this group and the group said this, but now you're saying this.
We've already been very compliant. You guys asked to take down the 90 page PDF that you gave me. And so I'm waiting for Rachel to give me the other. So, you've all said, Maggie, I took it right down. I'm very willing to work to make sure that we're on the same message on this.
I understand that, but doesn't mean I have control over what you guys say and do.
And so if I did have my 501c3 status as the preservation, you wouldn't have control going forward.
That's true.
Down the road anyway.
That's true. I wouldn't have control over what you do. And I'm telling the council is I don't feel comfortable promoting something that is not something I don't have control over. I don't have control of the message or the materials or their methods.
So in essence, we're working together
Victor,
as a city. We can't.
I think you are acting very foolishly in this meeting tonight over this boardwalk.
Who is this?
So please identify yourself.
Oh, man. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Lisa Nichols, 638 West Bluff. I guess, Maggie, I feel a little nervous too, because I want to give some money for it, but I want to make sure where it's going. And right now, even the 501, I want to make sure that all of it is going to the same thing for the west side, if that's what we concern, if we're going to do east and west or whatever. But it's all going to the same thing. So right now, I feel very hesitant who I'm giving money to. Is it this? Is it this? And again, if you guys came out and said, oh, it's going to be east and west, and we said, no, it's going to be west. Yeah, I think that needs to really be solidified. And the 501, that really needs, you got to have it, because I'm not giving that check.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's what makes you comfortable. I do believe there's other people that are giving $20 and $50, $100.
And I hope it comes through and I hope it gets there.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Right, well,
Do you think there's a negative impact to not combining as long as we're both saying the same things?
I think it's confusing because people are seeing double information, but not understanding it's the same project.
yeah, and keep in mind, this was, we brought this up in October. Matt, you said, Maggie, create this, let's do it. I created it, it should come forward.
You've started creating it.
Right.
You don't
Well,
have.
to do a 501c3, it's a process. You have to do a nonprofit. You have to do this. Now we're at the last stage and we're just waiting. So it's, but I think that, we're not going, we can be audited, anything that we put into it, we put our own money into it. Anything that any funds that have been put in there, they're there. So if someone wants to audit it, it's right there to be audited.
I don't think that, why is it so confusing to people if there's you guys raising money and the city will take donations? I guess I'm a little concerned. I don't quite understand why that's so confusing.
I think it's the promoting. It's like we wanted to go to, have an event, take turns of being at a booth and making sure that we were all working together to get the funds done. If you want to try to check the city, write a check the city. If you want to do it online, do it online. It's two ways. It's the same project though.
I think we can still work towards that. I think it's just, there's a certain thing, obviously Victor's got to look out for the best interest of what's going on with the city and liability wise. I think with the Parks Board, what we discussed, getting the information the same on what the city's providing, what you guys are providing, things like that. I think that shows we are working together. I think we do have the same goal. It's just Victor has to watch out, obviously, for the greater interest and back up the city's aspect in this. And there is still some questions. We'll get through that. We know that. But I think right now, I think if we change that wording, like we discussed at the Parks Board, and, you know, I'm the representative, you know, for whatever, but I think we continually keep making the steps forward. I think we're gonna be all right.
I agree.
I think there's just some technicalities here that we need to work through, and I think we'll work through them. I think it's, and I think we just stick with the wording, keep working forward. I think we still continue with what we discussed at those meetings, and I think everything will just work out. I don't think we need to point fingers right now. There's just some technicalities we got to get through. But I think our goal is the same. So, but I think that wording, like this lady spoke of, you know,
Yeah.
A, B, kind of thing. I think we got that in that wording. We discussed that to pretty good length. So I think we just need to get through that right now. I think our goals are the same. There's just some technicalities we need to get through, but we changed that wording and let's just move forward. So we got a good direction and we'll be all right.
Bill, did you have a comment?
The only thing confusing that I've witnessed to is the Chamber of Commerce, when they publish their online picture of the boardwalk, they only show the west side. So if you're talking about replacing the boardwalk and you only show the west side, that question comes to mind, well, that's not the whole thing. What happened to the other part? I don't know if you've looked at that latest blast from the chamber.
Because we're only fundraising for, technically, we're only.
Yeah, you know that, but unless you're talking to someone that's looking at that, they don't know that. Their perception, if they're come here visiting on an annual or semi-annual basis, is the boardwalk. It's got an east side, it's got a west side, it has a viewing platform. When you look at what's on the chamber's website, it only shows the west.
That's why we want to be in control of what we're fundraising for. And
But you just, I'm not saying you're gonna go ahead and get a bid for the east, so why not put it in the dotted line so people understand it's the entire process and there's no ambiguity. What you said is what I heard is what you said. No arc of distortion.
Maybe it's semantics. Maybe we start talking about it in terms of phase one and phase two, phase one being the west side.
The council already decided what our course of action.
Yeah.
Can't keep on going back and forth.
Again, it's made a decision, we have to stick with it, I think, at this point.
Once we get the 501c3 in place, can we get the groups, our Parks Board, city management, and you at a table and try to work out some common language? Because I got cornered at Gurney's last week and held court because the Gurneys came up and asked me, what should I put on the wall? And I said, I try to explain both. I mean, that's not easy to do. And then all the other people that were there for lunch, join the argument and just don't understand why there are these two efforts, parallel efforts going on. And who should they donate to? Should I give to the city? Should I give to the group? I said, it doesn't matter in the end. Give where you're comfortable right now. But we got to clear up this ambiguity. I think it's going to affect in a negative way.
And I think
fundraising.
I think we did that a week or so ago. I guess I haven't been that long at the Parks Board meeting. Maggie, they were there. We talked about some wording and they've been working on it. I don't know if it's done or not, but we are working towards that because I think we've all had that issue.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And will there be some sort of public announcement? Are we gonna?
I think it's going out
advertise
like
together and-
advertisements. I think they're going to do a float. I think that's still something we can look at doing. There are some things being talked about.
And I think if we all have the right talk track, and we're saying the same thing, because believe me, we don't want to veer off from what you all are saying as well, okay? Because we want this to be successful. I mean, it's a lot, we put a lot of investment in this already.
Well, we all want it to be
Exactly.
successful.
So I think that we're waiting for the FAQs. So, I know Rachel asked some of the, what should we put on those FAQs? Obviously, there's a lot from this meeting that we can put on there to clear up. And we put some more information into the paper and just keep on the awareness. I don't believe all of the summer people are here yet, and any project, you have to start tweaking things to make it perfect, right? So I think we're very close to making sure this goes out there correctly.
The talk Al was, it maybe, I don't know, every other week, a letter in the Harbor Light in regards to updates or what's going on, kind of thing. And then the wording in the flyers between their group, what's on the city webpage, Parks Board, whatever. So the wording read the same thing. And it was, so in that aspect, we're working together, making sure that the wording is all the same. We're getting the same message across.
This is just where it's a little difficult, though, where it'd be nice to have one brochure.
I agree.
We can't really do that if, I don't know if this is what I was trying to say before, is there some way that maybe like Jim Raymer can add some language to, like a disclaimer about the city, or I don't know.
I think we wanted to, use the same logo and just, get that, so it's the same message.
And can't you say in a flyer, two groups working together or the community working together to rebuild the boardwalk? And so that they know that we're not competing, we've all got the same goal. I think you got to put that together and put it in the paper and your advertising regularly.
I think we have to ask Jim. That would be my opinion.
I'm not proposing wording.
Yeah, not to put Jim on the spot, but is it?
I can only say my view on it. The city is raising money to build a specific project. Everybody knows what that is. The city is, if you make a contribution to the city, it is tax deductible. The separate group that is forming presumably has the same objective. I don't know that, but I assume they do. Unfortunately, of course, this is the way it works in the nonprofit world. They don't have a determination letter yet from the IRS. More than likely, they will get it. But what, where should people give money? I think they have to make their own decision on that, because you're giving money to a private organization that is going to have expenses. That's the way it is. And there's going to be a net figure that's presumably going to come, to do something with what the city's project is. I don't know exactly how that's going to work. So I think there's a lot of unknowns in how these two organizations are going to work together. Not to say they can't be worked out, but right now, the only organization that is known is the city. And that's the one that I think the city should be promoting. And if some of these unknowns that exist with regard to the private organization can be worked out, and sure, shake hands, let's try to do this together, but tell me exactly what it is you're looking for. Why aren't you just saying, give your money to the city because we know what they're going to do? I don't know. I don't really understand why you need a separate organization to raise money for the project that the city is going to undertake.
I think that effort started when some people, angry people, were tired of the city, the city's progress, and went out to do it on their own. I think that's okay. If they bring in money, that's all good. I'm not suggesting that we put it in the paper tomorrow that, we're all working together. We can't do that until the 501c3 is in place. But once that is in place, why can't we sit down at a table and figure out how we can do this so we'd accomplish all these goals?
I think that's a very desirable goal. I'm just saying at present, I don't think you can do that.
I understand that. But we're 2 weeks away, when it happens, when you got the documents that satisfy Jim, then I think we get together and come up with a common statement. And maybe we can put the logos on the same piece of paper. To me, it seems silly if we're working together that we can't do that. But I think it's important to do that and because of the confusion I see on the street. You know, everywhere I'm going, it's like, what do these two groups do? It's kind of hard to answer. So let's put it to the public that we are one.
I think we're all talking to people who have questions about the fundraising, and I try to keep it simple. The city has always had the intent of rebuilding the boardwalk, and we're raising money to do the west end of the boardwalk right now. There's a group of dedicated residents who have taken it upon themselves to help in the effort. So if you give your money to them or to us, the money will go to the boardwalk, and that's how we're going to rebuild it. As far as working together, everything I hear, including the meeting, we're already doing that. And if we can work together on a float, that's a great idea. You know, get the word out. When everybody's lined up on Main Street, let's get the word out. I haven't found it confusing. I haven't had people be frustrated or angry about these two efforts. I just say, look, there's a group of people that are working really hard to help the city raise funds. Give them money, give us money. Let's make sure all the money goes to the boardwalk. We're kind of going around in circles. We're already working together. Let's continue that effort. If you get your 501c3 letter, then the group that's already working together can take it to the next level. We're already working together.
I think that's kind of what I was thinking and what I think Al was trying to portray is right now, I think that's all that we can say. City's doing this hardworking group's over here doing this. And then once these hurdles, as Jim has meant, you know, a few little hiccups, then we go to the next level and have another sit down.
You know, with other groups that we have fundraised with, let's say that we've used the Petoskey Community Foundation before, we sign an agreement with them. I mean, there's agreement stipulated, and so, I mean, that's what it would take. I mean, that's fine, but right now we're not at that point. And when that point comes, want to sign some sort of agreement, that's what council wants to do, I'm fine with that, but I'm not going to tell people that this 501c3 is not a 501c3 is where you should put your money. I can't do that. I'm not going to be held liable for that whatsoever. Because on the small off chance that they don't get the 501c3 status.
Carol Winard, 141 Snyder Street. I just had a question because I'm not on the committee and I'm not in the parks, but have you identified key potential donors and determined whether it's a city that's going to approach those well-to-do individuals that could write big checks? Because $700,000 is a lot of money. And I give the committee a lot of credit for working on it, but at $20 a piece or 50 or 100, we need somebody to step up for $100,000. And there's a lot of, as we know, a lot of people with a lot of money in this area. And it seems to me that it might be helpful to try to identify some of those potential donors and then determine whether it's somebody at the city, whether it's a resident, somebody on the committee, somebody that knows that person well enough to say, we need a lead gift and we need you to step up for, pick a number, $200,000, whatever. And what I'd hate to see is a couple different people all approaching the same one or two people and then having that discussion about, well, wait a second, is it the city or this committee? Because you got one shot at asking some of these people for a lot of money. And I think it has to be a really structured, well thought out plan. But it seems to me that there are some people in this community who have been here for probably 50, 60, 70 years of their life, who, if they write $100,000 check, it's chump change to them. And we need some of those as lead donors, it seems to me.
Thank you.
To answer your question.
May I speak?
Yes.
I'm sorry, my voice is really bad. That's why I'm not there right now. This is Karen Strow, 644 Ann Street. I was in the audience at the Parks Rec Board meeting this past week. And I felt, as Dana said, and John Cups had said, we kind of came to a point where we said, yeah, it makes sense to work together. I mean, synergy is greater than the sum of two parts. And I think just because of the discussion I'm listening to tonight, there's obviously, a notable faction or misunderstanding, which is not going to do anything but hurt the fundraising effort. I think we're reaching different audiences. I think getting the 501(c)(3) or C3 behind us maybe can let us move forward to have a more formal relationship, as you will, whatever that means financially. But I think that without that, we're going to hurt the fundraising. As I said, we're reaching different people. I know the preservation group has already talked to some people, apparently received some commitments to money, and the city I know has also received some contributions, but we got a long ways to go here. And Al's already been confronted by people asking the question. There's just a lot of uncertainty, and if there's an appearance of faction here, it's not going to help us at all. We got to get this together, and we're a community here. We're all trying to serve the same purpose, trying to get to the same place and get the boardwalk built. And I think having the discussion on getting the estimate as a total is really good, so we can look at what that whole cost would be, because it might be cheaper to build it all at once instead of building it in parts. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Just one. How much money has the city received so far for this project?
I don't have a tally of that right now.
What kind of a tally will there be, and will it be public? Will it be periodic? Will it be a boardwalk display showing 20%, 30%? Or is it an unending, give me your money and we'll go to boardwalk?
We're working on that, Bill.
Okay.
You're gonna get a thermometer.
Yeah, use a thermometer, yeah. Yeah.
It works.
I mean, it's a visual, it works.
Yeah, and I guess the Parks Board, you guys might have gotten ahead of yourselves. I mean, you're making decisions that affect the city, or making agreements that affect the city without checking with the city. So I would suggest that you, be a little more careful next time, because we don't want to fight with you guys, but we do want to protect our interests, and you want to protect your interests as well. So I think we can continue to work together once you get your 501(c) accreditation, and we'll look at it again and see what we can do.
What's that?
What else? Or do we need anything else?
I'm good.
Good.
Manager's report. Arbor Day Fest was successful. We had about 80 people in attendance. So thanks to the tree board, Parks Director, and all the volunteers that showed up. It was great. You've seen Chief Knight's May report, which was attached, as well as Housing North sent an update. MDOT has provided tree species to plant on its culvert project. The tree advisory board has reviewed MDOT's suggestions. Waiting for more information. Kyle, I believe Chief Knight met with the traffic. You met with Andrew?
Yes.
Yeah. So we got a final answer from him.
No, he was gonna go back and explore it.
So we're still waiting for some more information from MDOT before we come back to council. Police Department Chief Knight received a $2,500 grant from the state of Michigan to cover costs to attend the Chiefs Conference. Parks Department received a $6,000 grant to reinstall the beach playground equipment for the summer. A note warning here, if the dry weather persists, the city may have to institute and enforce water restrictions. We had today's rain, which was nice, but in general, the spring has been pretty dry. So just keep that in mind that we might have to do some water enforcement this summer if the trend continues. Finally, there's been volatility and disruptions in the energy market, energy supply and energy market. So we're going to be encouraging residents and business to use electricity wisely, conserve, be efficient. You'll hear more from us on that, but it is a pretty unstable energy market right now. So, and the risk of brownouts is increased dramatically. So, and that's basically well, the 3rd Street project should be wrapped up by June 15th. They should get paving on it this week, hopefully. Should be some dry weather, of course. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. We do our old business.
None.
Okay. In that case, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Sure.
Recording the meeting.
Gotta do it.
Is Mark going? No, it's just.